my soon-to-be ex-wife, whom I'll refer to as Bella, and I tied the knot in January 2020. I was 22 at the time, and Bella was just 21. We decided to get married in secret, keeping it from everyone except our closest friends. At that point, we were both living on campus at our university in Miami, far from our hometowns where our families lived. From the moment we said "I do," our marriage quickly turned into a nightmare. To begin with, Bella was secretly texting her high school ex, whom I'll call Jay. She insisted they were just friends now, but it didn't sit right with me since Jay was her first love. I wanted to trust her and wasn't the type to go snooping through her phone. Yet, Bella made it clear she was hiding something. She would go out of her way to shield her screen from me, and whenever I tried to look at her phone, she would have an explosive reaction. Eventually, I managed to figure out her passcode and check her messages. But I didn't find any solid evidence to confront her with. By March 2020, the pandemic hit, and everyone was forced to move back home. We were in a tricky situation since we hadn't told our families about the marriage, so we kept wearing our rings in secret. Everything seemed to be going okay until the first week of April 2020, when Bella suddenly announced she wanted a divorce. Hearing those words crushed me. I cried and pleaded with her to stay. I asked her if I had done something wrong or if there was something more I could do. Bella simply said she no longer loved me and wasn't the right person for me. For about a week, I did everything I could to salvage our marriage, but Bella was incredibly stubborn. By the end of that difficult week, I came to terms with the fact that Bella didn't want to be with me anymore. It was a painful realization, but I knew dragging this out wasn't going to help. I only asked for the wedding rings back, but Bella refused, claiming they were a gift, and she had every right to keep them. Legally, she might have had a point, but I didn't think she deserved to keep them since our marriage was ending. The rings were real, and I had only made payments on them for about 4 months out of a 3-year plan. We argued about it over the phone until I ended the call, sobbing alone in bed. My mother noticed I was upset and asked what was going on. I opened up to her about everything, and she comforted me, assuring me that things would get better. The next day, we went to Bella's home, where we confronted her mother and revealed the truth. This led to a heated argument between our mothers, with Bella still refusing to come downstairs, but texting me angrily about involving our families. Eventually, our mothers agreed that I would get the rings back, but on a different day. A couple of days later, while I was at work, Bella called me in tears, saying her mother was kicking her out because of our secret marriage. She told me she still loved me and wanted to give our relationship another chance, promising to cut ties with Jay. She suggested we move in together as a married couple. Fueled by love and desperation, I rushed out of work to meet her, and we began searching for apartments immediately. I managed to find a reasonably priced place due to the pandemic, and we could move in within 3 days. When I told my parents about the move, my mother was dismayed. She warned me I was making a mistake and urged me to reconsider. My father was disappointed but said it was my decision. Over the next few days, my friends helped me move, and I barely spoke to my parents. It was heartbreaking to see how upset my mother was, and it pained me to see her hurt. On the first day in our new apartment, I felt like our marriage was finally heading in the right direction, and I was beginning to experience the happiness I had before Bella asked for a divorce. But that feeling didn't last long. A few weeks after moving in, we went out for drinks, and when we got home, I went through Bella's phone and found messages between her and another ex, whom I'll call E. The messages dated back to the period when she asked for the divorce, and it left me devastated. Bella was passed out on the bed, so I woke her up by splashing water on her and started yelling at her. She was disoriented and still tipsy, but my anger was overwhelming. I yelled at her for 2 to 3 hours, demanding she leave. In response, she started hitting me and chasing me around the apartment, actually landing a few punches and scratches. I'm not a violent person, so I took the abuse and locked myself in a room to keep her away. Bella cried and begged for forgiveness, even getting on her knees and promising to make it up to me. We continued to argue and then tried to talk things through from opposite sides of the bedroom door. Eventually, we both calmed down and went to bed. Even though it was 4 a.m., I couldn't sleep, and when 7 a.m. rolled around, Bella woke up with only partial memories of the night. I repeated everything to her, but this time she was sober and pleaded with me to stay. She cried, saying she had nowhere else to go. At that moment, I felt a deep resentment towards her, believing she had taken me away from my family, friends, and my life. From what I read in the messages, there wasn't any concrete proof of physical encounters, but there were sexually charged conversations, including her calling E sexy and E suggesting they make a video together, which I considered cheating. After more arguing, I told Bella that as long as she promised nothing physical had happened with E, I wouldn't leave, provided she never talked to E again. She swore nothing happened, but when I asked if anything had occurred between her and Jay, she hesitated before saying no. That hesitation made me suspicious, and made me feel like this was just the beginning of more revelations that would turn my world upside down. To give you more context, when we first moved into our new place in April 2020, I was working at a call center about an hour away from our apartment, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Since Bella wasn't working, her job was closed due to the pandemic. I had to pick up extra shifts with Uber Eats, Postmates, and DoorDash, usually working from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., or whenever I had a day off. On top of that, after our first night in the new place, Bella began giving me the cold shoulder every night. While I was at work, she would text me affectionate messages, telling me how much she loved me and was waiting to cuddle. Yet, as soon as I got home, she barely acknowledged me, which led to my discovery of her messages with E. Now, by June 2020, several weeks after the incident, I was keeping my distance from Bella, sticking to my work routine, and trying to finish my college classes online. Bella still wasn't working, and when I came home, the place was always a mess unless I cleaned it myself. During this time, she adopted a mini golden doodle, but when we moved in, I brought my Malshi along, who Bella had adored until the new dog arrived. Suddenly, she seemed indifferent to my dog, giving him the same cold treatment. The months that followed were marked by a repetitive routine. We attempted to talk and go on dates, but they always ended in silence. I tried to break the ice and see if we could salvage our relationship, but Bella was unwilling to open up. Gradually, I felt my love for her fading as I grew numb to her behavior. Everything changed in October 2020 when Bella finally decided to open up. She apologized for her behavior over the past few months, and we both agreed to leave the past behind and focus on rebuilding our relationship. It felt like a new beginning, especially when I caught COVID the following month. Bella took care of me like a true wife should, and when she got sick after I recovered, I took care of her in return. We began to act more like a married couple. Bella started showing interest in my hobbies, such as video games, anime, art, and photography. She even joined me on my late-night delivery shifts, where we would listen to music together, and she helped out. We discovered new things about each other, went on dates, and I genuinely felt warmth in her presence again. It was like the spark between us was rekindling, though I still carried a secret resentment over her past actions, which made it hard to fully move on. Just before Valentine's Day 2021, I made another troubling discovery. I had been secretly checking her phone from time to time, but I hadn't found anything new about her and E beyond what I already knew. This time, I decided to dig deeper and read her messages with her best friend, where Bella frequently shared gossip and screenshots. My heart sank further when I found more details about her and Jay. It turned out that Bella and Jay had slept together a few days before she asked for a divorce, which was actually the real reason behind her request for separation. As I continued reading, I found out that Bella and Jay had also had a conversation in October 2020, seeking closure, which might be why she decided to give our relationship another chance. Surprisingly, I wasn't shocked by this revelation. I woke Bella from her nap and calmly confronted her with what I had discovered. She broke down in tears and apologized, and I took a drive to clear my head. My mind was consumed by dark thoughts, feeling utterly alone and unsure of who to turn to. For the next few days, I distanced myself from her as much as possible. We still slept in the same bed, but there was no physical contact between us. On Valentine's Day morning, Bella nudged me with a sweet tone, asking about my plans for her. Given my exhaustion from work and deliveries that week, and my heartache, her request was overwhelming. When she started crying, saying I hadn't planned anything for her, I lost it. I jumped out of bed and scolded her, furious that she expected anything from me after what I had just discovered. I yelled at her, telling her she didn't deserve anything and that our marriage was a complete disaster. You might be wondering why I stuck around. At that point, I was so drained that I couldn't muster the energy to make a change. I felt like a shell of my former self, someone who used to be creative and full of life, engaged in drawing, painting, photography, and eagerly seeking new adventures. Now, I was hollow, questioning the purpose of life. I know it was foolish of me, but I thought it was easier to keep up appearances rather than face the reality. Our marriage had become so entangled in my life that it felt like there was no turning back. If I left, I would be facing an uncertain future, and I blamed myself for relying on her for my happiness, despite her also being the source of my deepest sadness. I didn't forgive her. I just became increasingly numb. After this latest discovery, we entered another phase of distance. In April 2021, Bella went to Peru with her grandmother, and I was actually relieved to have some space to myself. I told my friends about it, and they started visiting me more often. They helped me reconnect with my old self, enjoying late-night hangouts, game nights, movie marathons, and just being together. It felt great to experience happiness again, even if it was only temporary. Meanwhile, our apartment lease was ending in May 2021. I talked to my father about our options, and he suggested that Bella and I stay at their home while he followed my mother to Chicago for the rest of the year. I agreed, though Bella wasn't thrilled about the idea. However, I didn't need her approval. Either we moved in with my parents or faced exorbitant rent for another year. I moved back in with my parents in June 2021. Bella was still in Peru, but was set to return in a few weeks. I felt a sense of relief moving back into my old room, surrounded by the things that represented a more vibrant time in my life. I enjoyed my last few weeks of freedom, but I knew this sense of peace wouldn't last long, as Bella was soon coming back from her trip. By June-July 2021, Bella and I were back living at my parents' home. I had recently started a new job in sales, and within just a couple of months, I had advanced to a supervisor position. The promotion came with a salary good enough to finally afford my dream car, something I had been working towards for a long time. Despite my career progress, the state of our marriage remained a mixed bag. We managed to establish a routine, with good and bad moments interspersed, but I was left with a persistent emotional void. It was hard to pinpoint what I felt for why, whether it was lingering anger, sadness, or just a deep sense of numbness. It felt like our marriage was just floating along, existing without any real purpose or joy. As the new year rolled in, we started to make some progress. We began going out on dates again and tried to open up more to each other. It seemed like we were making strides, but we still struggled with uncertainty about where our relationship stood. Everything felt somewhat stable until May 2022, when my life took another dramatic turn. I had planned to get together with some friends at my parents' place to watch a boxing match. I let Bella know about the gathering, assuring her that it would be loud and only for a few hours. She seemed fine with it, understanding the nature of the event. As the match went on, our excitement grew louder, and our enthusiasm turned into a raucous celebration. Bella, however, was increasingly annoyed. She started sending me irritated texts, demanding that I keep the noise down. Each time she came out for snacks or to use the bathroom, she slammed the door behind her with visible frustration. After the fight, one of my friends had a dead battery, so I used my car to jump it. We chatted while working on the battery for about half an hour. Meanwhile, Bella continued to text me furiously, insisting that I come inside. I told her we were nearly done. Just as I was about to go inside, Bella stormed out of the house and headed towards her car. I asked her if everything was all right, but she brushed me off with a scowl and pushed me aside. My dad had installed outdoor solar lights in the front yard before leaving for Chicago. Bella's car was positioned in such a way that her only way out was through a grassy area with one of these lights. As she revved up her engine, I ran to stop her from driving over the light. I asked her what was wrong, but she hesitated only briefly before slamming the gas pedal, almost running me over. I managed to leap out of the way, but not before grazing my knee. She sped off, dragging the light along and scraping the road as she left. I sat on the ground, stunned and disbelieving. My friends helped me up and checked if I was okay. Still in shock, I told them to head home while I went back inside, trying to come to terms with what had just happened. I repeatedly called Bella's phone, desperate to understand her actions. Once inside our room, I found Bella's phone lying on the floor, unlocked. It had been months since I last checked her phone, but now seemed like the right time. What I discovered confirmed my worst fears. Bella had maintained a secret affair with Jay from March 2020 to October 2020. The revelation was a punch to the gut. It was clear now that the issues between us had deeper roots than I had realized, and I felt a surge of clarity about what needed to be done. It was around 2 a.m., and I was still reeling from the night's events. I tried calling my sister, who lived just down the road, but got no response. Bella returned and attempted to get inside, but I had managed to lock the door with an additional lock. In a panic, I slipped out the back and drove to my sister's house, hyperventilating as Bella chased after me. I knocked frantically on her door until my sister and her husband finally opened it. Bella's arrival in the driveway made me even more desperate, but my sister's intervention made Bella back off and drive away. I poured my heart out to my sister, explaining everything and finally confronting the truth about Bella's infidelity. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I knew it was time to end the marriage. I asked my sister to come back with me to ensure Bella wouldn't try to harm me further. When we returned, Bella was already in the process of packing her belongings. I kept my distance initially, but eventually asked for the wedding rings and keys. She had anticipated this request, so she handed them over without protest. Bella grabbed her suitcase and took our golden doodle with her. After a final chat with my sister, Bella left for good. That night was agonizing. I didn't manage to fall asleep until around 6 a.m., only to be jolted awake at 7 a.m. by Bella knocking on my window. She had spent the night in her car and begged me to let the golden doodle back inside. Despite my desire to help, I ignored her persistent knocking for about 30 minutes. Eventually, I reached out to Bella and agreed to meet her to discuss everything. I laid out all the facts, telling her that separation was the only viable option. She pleaded and cried, begging for another chance. But I was drained from years of emotional and physical abuse, lies, and heartbreak. As harsh as it may sound, watching Bella face the consequences of her actions was oddly satisfying. It felt like a form of karmic justice for everything she had put me through. After Bella moved out, she initially sought refuge with her mother, but the arrangement proved short-lived. The tension between Bella and her stepfather was palpable, and Bella's stubborn pride made it intolerable for her to remain under her mother's roof for long. By August 2022, she found a new apartment of her own. She extended an olive branch of sorts, saying that if I ever wanted to revisit the possibility of reconciliation, I was welcome to move back in with her. The gesture felt insincere to me, a superficial offer that couldn't undo the damage of the past. When my parents returned from their extended stay in Chicago, the logistics of separating our belongings became a task fraught with tension. Most of the furniture in our bedroom belonged to Bella. She had insisted on replacing my old, familiar pieces with hers, claiming they looked more classy. As a result, we had only a few shared items like the couch, tables, and kitchen appliances, which were all boxed away in another room. On the day Bella came to collect her things, my father and I strategically left everything out in the driveway, deliberately choosing not to assist with the move. Bella arrived with a small entourage: her mother, stepfather, uncle, 2 aunts, and her grandmother. They were not particularly strong or capable movers. What my father and I could have managed in about 30 minutes stretched into 2-3 hours for them. From inside the house, we watched their struggle through the window, sipping drinks and exchanging amused glances. Their effort was punctuated by occasional snide comments about me and my family, a reflection of their propensity for gossip and criticism, which only fueled my sense of vindication. Once Bella settled into her new apartment, she started a new job in her field. The job paid well by the hour but offered insufficient hours, leading to persistent financial difficulties. Despite her high-paying job, Bella's pride prevented her from seeking a second source of income. She fell behind on her rent, bills, and car payments, reaching out to me for financial assistance several times. I refused, maintaining that her financial troubles were no longer my responsibility. Bella attempted to manipulate me by suggesting that I should help her to avoid letting our golden doodle suffer. Her arguments were met with my blunt response that she should seek support from her lover. To my surprise, Bella's mother supported my stance, refusing to provide her daughter with any financial aid. The rest of Bella's family, who harbored resentment toward me for not reconciling, were irrelevant in my eyes, especially since they lacked personal experience with marriage. Months rolled by, and despite our ongoing legal marriage, Bella and I agreed to split the divorce costs. However, Bella was unable to contribute her half. During these discussions, She confessed that she still hoped for reconciliation and believed that I might still have feelings for her. I did have lingering feelings, but I was weary of the cycle of hurt and distrust. It was tough for me to completely hate her, given our history, and the fact that she had been a significant part of my life. She had been there for me during crucial moments, but her actions had also led to my profound emotional pain. We remained connected through social media, and despite her claims of financial struggle, she was frequently seen out at clubs on weekends. Her drunken texts and calls, in which she admitted her mistakes, became a routine occurrence. Whenever I posted updates about my activities on Instagram or Snapchat, she was among the first to view my stories, often within moments. She acknowledged that I seemed happier without her. Although I wouldn't describe myself as entirely happy, I felt a newfound sense of freedom. Since moving out, Bella experienced a series of unfortunate events. She had 2 car accidents within a few months, and although we were no longer on the same insurance plan, she reached out to me for financial help. I declined, firmly telling her that she was on her own. I had kept her on my phone plan for a few months after the separation, but eventually decided to disconnect her line without informing her. When she discovered this, she angrily texted me about losing her number and needing a new phone because her current one was locked to my carrier. Her enraged messages were a source of dark amusement for me. In the wake of our separation, I rekindled a friendship with an ex-girlfriend, whom Bella had previously demanded I cut off. Bella suspected that I divorced her to be with my ex, but I had no romantic interest in her. We were just reconnecting as friends. From a mutual friend, I learned that Bella had tried to rekindle relationships with both E and J, who were now in committed relationships. Bella continued to reach out to me about her financial woes, including near evictions and struggles to care for our golden doodle. I speculated that she might be receiving financial support from her grandmother. Our communication continued sporadically as we addressed legal and logistical matters. Bella often expressed regret and a desire to reconcile, claiming that she would never find another partner like me. Part of me took satisfaction in her downfall, a sense of poetic justice for the years of suffering she had caused me. Another part of me felt sorrowful for how things had turned out. In March 2023, we went to court to finalize our divorce. While we waited for our turn, Bella stepped into the hallway and sobbed uncontrollably. I sat quietly, trying to process the range of emotions. When our turn came, we signed the final papers, officially ending our legal ties. Since then, our interactions have been minimal, restricted to occasional texts about leftover items or final matters. In my own life, I experienced significant changes. I was promoted to manager shortly after our separation, but left that position in November 2022 due to overwork and lack of sleep. I found a new job with better pay and a healthier work-life balance. During the marriage, I had gained weight from overeating as a coping mechanism for depression. I've begun going back to the gym, working on establishing a consistent routine. I have exciting plans with friends for the summer and personal goals for later in the year. As of June 2023, life is far from perfect. However, when I have challenging days, I remind myself of how Bella's life seems to have unraveled since our separation. It provides a sense of satisfaction and vindication, a twisted form of justice for the pain I endured. I may be an asshole for feeling this way, but at least my life is finally moving in a positive direction. I hope Bella sees how much better I am doing without her and finds her own path to healing and happiness. Today marks a significant milestone in closing one chapter of my life. I'm heading to court to finalize the divorce with Bella. She texted me on Monday, June 26th, to remind me of our court date on June 30th. Yesterday, she sent another reminder and also asked for a few remaining items she left behind. I took the opportunity to request some things of mine that I still needed. We're still connected on social media, though I make a point not to snoop. I occasionally catch glimpses of her stories while checking others. Recently, it seems she's either dating someone new or in the process of getting involved with someone. She's been posting text messages with this person, which doesn't strike me as an attempt to make me jealous, but rather as her usual need for external validation and attention. It's a pattern I recognized from when we first got together. I don't feel any jealousy or animosity towards her. In fact, I feel a sense of relief that she's moving on. To me, it's a sign that she's finally stepping into someone else's life, bringing her own set of issues along with her. Whoever is entering into a relationship with her now is stepping into a storm they might not fully understand. All I can say is good luck to them. They'll need it. Regarding the court proceedings, I'm actually looking forward to it. It represents a definitive end to this chapter, allowing me to continue moving forward with my life. Bella had suggested that even after the divorce, we could still remain friends, primarily because of our shared responsibility for the golden doodle. While I care deeply for the dog, I realize that I need to sever all connections to truly move on. Once everything is finalized today, I plan to block her on all platforms and eliminate any remaining ties. As for my personal life, I haven't pursued any new relationships. The idea of diving back into the dating world feels overwhelming right now. Trust issues and insecurities are major barriers for me. In past relationships, including with Bella, it was usually the woman who made the first move. I recognize that this needs to change, but for now, my focus remains on my career and financial stability. I'm working hard to pay off my bills and regain control of my life. On a more positive note, one of my friends has taken on the role of my gym trainer. I've managed to shed 10 pounds so far, which feels like a small victory. Next week, my friends and I are embarking on our long-awaited summer trip. We've planned a series of stops across the state, and I'm eagerly anticipating the chance to unwind and enjoy some well-deserved downtime with them. As I head to court today, there's a sense of finality and closure that I'm embracing. It's a step towards reclaiming my own life and happiness, leaving behind the turbulence of the past. We arrived at the courthouse and took our place in the waiting area. It was a small, sterile space, with only a few chairs and a couple of people milling about. When our names were called, the clerk guided us to a tiny office with barely enough room for both of us. There was only one chair available, so I took it without hesitation. I could feel Bella's gaze piercing into me, even though I avoided looking at her directly. She snapped, "Can I at least sit down?" To which I replied curtly, "Then grab a chair." Her frustration was palpable as she grumbled, "Whatever," and stood off to the side. During the brief proceedings, we explained our reason for the divorce. There was no contention over assets or custody, just a simple separation. The clerk had to leave the room a few times, either to fetch documents or input information into the computer. Each time she left, Bella used the opportunity to throw barbs at me. She made remarks about how eager she was to be rid of me, how I had somehow trapped her into marriage, and how I never satisfied her. Her comments were laced with bitterness and a desperate attempt to cover her true feelings. I didn't let her words get to me. I knew she was projecting her pain and frustration. She even threw in a snide comment about hoping I have fun with my ex, despite my insistence that there's nothing romantic there. The clerk was visibly trying not to laugh, which only made the situation more absurd. Once the formalities were completed and the fee was paid, we had one more court date to finalize everything, scheduled for 2 months from now. As we left, it was raining heavily. We continued discussing a few remaining details. The main topic of discussion was her request for me to watch our golden doodle while she went on an international trip in August. I had to decline, explaining that it wasn't possible for me to commit to that. She responded by calling me a deadbeat dog dad and declared that I would never see the dog again before storming off. Here's the twist. Yesterday, Bella reached out to ask if I could watch the golden doodle for today. I had to refuse again because I'm at work, even though it's the 4th of July. And to add another layer of irony, today is her birthday. Despite the significance of the day for her, she won't be receiving a happy birthday wish from me. Her family, particularly her mother and stepfather, who are Jehovah's Witnesses, don't celebrate birthdays. This leaves her with only her best friend, who is likely preoccupied with her boyfriend. So here I am, at work, counting down the hours until I can start my vacation in 2 days. It's a strange mix of relief and anticipation. I'm ready to finally enjoy some time off, and it's a bittersweet reminder that life is moving forward, even if it means leaving certain people and their drama behind. On July 18th, we had a Zoom conference call with the judge to finalize our divorce. It was initially scheduled to be in 2 months, but our date arrived sooner than expected. The call was brief and almost surreal, lasting no more than 2 minutes. We were instructed to raise our right hands and respond to a series of straightforward questions about the reasons for our divorce. It was a formality, almost too simple considering the gravity of the situation. The judge then posed a question to Bella that seemed to catch her off guard. He asked, Can you confirm if this marriage is unable to be resolved? Bella hesitated for what felt like an eternity, staring blankly at the camera before finally mumbling, "Yes." Her response, coupled with the long pause, was almost comically tragic. The judge then confirmed that we would receive an email, either that day or the next, officially finalizing our divorce. With that, the call was abruptly ended. Despite the finality of the decision, it hasn't quite hit me that I'm legally single now. I felt like I had been living as if I were single for over a year already. The biggest change is the absence of dealing with Bella's issues and drama. Other than that, my life feels remarkably unchanged. I guess the legal label of single is just a formality compared to the emotional reality I've been living. The finalization of the divorce is more of a symbolic gesture than a significant shift in my day-to-day life. The true change came from within me, having already adapted to a life without her. Now, it's just a matter of moving forward with that sense of finality officially acknowledged. To those who have listened to my long, tumultuous journey through a toxic marriage and subsequent divorce, I hope this sheds some light on what happened before Bella and I even tied the knot. I'll try to keep this concise, but there's quite a bit to unpack. Bella and I have known each other since elementary school. We went to the same schools through middle school, and even had classes together, but we never really talked. My freshman and sophomore years were spent at different schools due to moving, but I ended up at the same high school as Bella for my junior and senior years. Before getting involved with Bella, I actually had a brief thing with her friend VV, and I had a sort of relationship during our sophomore year, before I moved to her school, but it never fully materialized. When I tried reconnecting with V during our senior year, things didn't work out, which left me feeling somewhat unsettled. During this time, Bella was there for me, offering comfort, though it wasn't with any romantic intention at first. Bella and V had stopped being friends around the same period, but it had nothing to do with me. Bella and I grew closer because we shared a class together. She started messaging me on Instagram, which led to texting and late-night phone calls. One day, on the last day of school, we sneaked behind the portable classrooms to chat privately. Things took an unexpected turn when Bella suddenly grabbed my dick. We heard people approaching, so we stopped, laughed it off, and went back to our classes. It was an awkward but oddly thrilling moment that we brushed aside. Weeks later, during graduation rehearsal, I gave Bella a ride home. I jokingly demanded cash, gas, or a sexual favor for the ride. To my surprise, she took it seriously and dared me to pull over. Once I did, and seeing her put her hair in a ponytail, it was clear she was serious. We ended up having sex in my car. The next day, I walked across the stage with a conspicuous hickey on my neck. Bella left for Peru for the summer, which meant we were temporarily separated. While she was in Peru, Bella kept teasing me with photos and videos. When she returned, we picked up where we left off and fell into a friends with benefits arrangement. We maintained that we were just having fun and had no feelings for each other, but our weekly meetings became a routine. Her family was out of the house from Wednesday through Sunday due to their business, giving us a large window of time. We would start our encounters around 9 or 10 a.m., and I would leave before 6:30 p.m. to avoid any issues with her family. On other days, we would meet up for quickie sessions in my car. This pattern continued for about a year until we decided to make our relationship official, since we were essentially acting like a couple anyway. The first few months of being an official couple were good, but soon the dynamics changed. Bella became increasingly possessive, resenting me for hanging out with friends or talking to other women. To keep the peace, I would make sure to see her the same day or the next, satisfying her needs and improving her mood. This created a cycle where our relationship was heavily centered around sex. Despite this, we had serious moments, pregnancy scares, discussions about starting a family, and even talk of marriage. In public, we appeared to be the ideal couple. We were each other's halves, pushing each other to achieve our goals and showing our love through physical intimacy. We looked like a perfect match to everyone around us. That's why it was so hard for me to let Bella go, even after discovering her infidelity. A part of me couldn't believe she could be so deceitful after everything we had been through. But people change, and anyone who's been in a relationship as long as ours would understand the difficulty of accepting such a transformation. To clarify for those who are confused, my relationship with Bella began as a friends with benefits arrangement when we were both 18. We married at 22 and separated at 24. We're now both 25, and we've gone our separate ways after finalizing the divorce. On a brighter note, I'm about to receive a promotion soon, and the summer trip with friends was a much-needed boost. It's been a challenging journey, but I'm moving forward.